Play.
Oh well, proceed. Can you hear me all right?
Now, yes. Now we've done the procedures. There was
Right,
a
right.
bit of a fail, but I don't know what happened. But anyway, we're here. John Silk is there from live at Buenos Aires.
Yeah, right. About to do a tango. Hola. That was me just saying hola to someone, by the way. Yeah, how are you doing, Damien? I sent you a WhatsApp a little earlier because I was panicking, wasn't I?
Yeah, you were, but contrary to what you thought, I'm here. I'm ready, and yeah, let's watch another Carlos Alcaraz match.
Yeah, this tournament is shaping up to be a little easier for him than maybe I was thinking at the beginning, just in terms of the competition, one or two players going out, one or two players out of form. Um, I hope that we get some exciting matches either tonight or tomorrow, but I'm fearing the worst.
Yeah, tomorrow is probably our best bet at this point. Obviously, Jari pushed him last year, not only Golden Swing, but also Wimbledon. Echeverry, I think, could be a bit of a threat, but Vavassori is probably more dangerous than Ugo Carabelli just with the way that he can actually disrupt rhythm, unlike Camilo. But yeah, certainly Jere going out is a bit of an easier path already for Carlos. I think Jere potentially is a tough matchup. And also Nori, I don't think he's that much stronger actually than the guys that we could see in the final. Like on clay, I don't
No.
think he's that much stronger than Coria or Diaz Acosta. But when it comes to how they match up against Carlos, probably Nori was still the best bet sort of to kick him out. So I think the semi tomorrow will be the key round for Alcaraz. But yeah, it's certainly shaping up to be like an easier title than last year for him if he does get there.
What about Lajovic as well, though? I thought just could be somebody a bit different, someone make things interesting. Baez, by the way, of course, lost in straight sets earlier. It was a much easier match than I expected as well. I don't know. I think an out of form Carlos, because I still think the other day didn't really dispel any of the concerns that we might have about Carlos. Even an out of form Carlos should be probably winning this tournament without dropping a set. By the way, I've just had a WhatsApp from my sister. I just saw it go across the top of my screen saying she's watching me live. So, hello, Claire, and join the live chat if you can and keep us all company. But yeah, there's just a slightly flat feel. I mean, the stadiums have been about half full, even for the Argentinian players. Of course, we had an all-Argentinian clash earlier. I also probably would have liked maybe a Stan or a Cam in the semis just to give it a bit more of an international vibe, and maybe also to help my YouTube views on my Spanish-speaking press conferences or English-speaking press conferences, I should say. There was something else I wanted to say about that. Yeah. Anyway, whatever. Let's see if we might get we might get a random three-setter. Carlos is prone to losing a bit of concentration sometimes when the matches get a bit too easy for him. I don't know if that was the issue for him the other night. I don't know if you thought. What did you think about Carlos's performance on last night? Was it last night or the night before? Last night.
Last night.
Yeah.
Last night. Yeah, by the
Yeah.
way, we're getting an all Argentinian semi as well, which is guaranteeing an Argentina in the final. So I would assume that the attendance will be, strong the
Yeah,
next
but
two
there's
days. We'll
the
see.
economy here, which seems to go from crisis to one crisis to another. From what I was speaking to earlier, someone I was speaking to earlier was like, yeah, but the economy's dire. The ticket prices are expensive.
Hmm.
So I think sometimes when people are watching on TV back home, it's like, oh, why aren't the stadiums full? What's going on? Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And I think there's a million factors involved, and largely it's the economy here because I think there is an interest. I mean, the media room is just packed, even more so than a Spanish tournament, for example. There's a lot bigger media presence here, which from my side is actually a bit annoying because I wouldn't mind getting a few more questions in, but that's how it is. But anyway, what about Carlos and his level right now? I mean, should we be concerned?
I think that Ugo Carabelli match is pretty good for you. Like round one, well, round two for him, but the opening match, you kind of want to play someone like that, someone who's not gonna like respond too much to your pace, not disrupt you too much. But yeah, I just don't really want to give him confidence, of course, and that's kind of what happened in the last couple of games when he was, so willing to take these big down the line opportunities. And of course, this actually could have gone free as well, right? I mean, Carlos was love 40 down at 5-0, and he found
Yeah,
like his best serving patch of the match in that next 4 or 5 points. So this easily could have gone free. I mean, well, maybe not easily because still Ugo Carabelli would have had to hold, and of course this was pretty rough for him the entire match. But still, this could have gone free. And I still feel like it's a pretty decent matchup to start with, though. Someone who's just not going to be too threatening to you, but at the same time just give you a lot of nice rhythm, groove. And then you play Vavassori, who's probably a bit more of a disruptor, has a bigger serve, obviously. So it's not as ideal. But after all, if you're playing an ATP Tour quarterfinal, Andrea Vavassori is probably one of the easier opponents you can get there. So, I still don't think there's any like need to worry. And basically, I kind of expect Carlos to sleepwalk through to the semis. Next
Yeah.
step, Jari or Echeverry, that actually might get tricky, and he might actually have to step up there. But today, I would expect something similar to yesterday, more or less, where I mean, he's going to be fine playing his B game, I would assume.
Yeah, but there is one little a bit of optimism for his opponents, or Vavassori today, for example, is that actually the sleepwalking does sometimes be an issue for Carlos in terms of his concentration. I don't know if that was an issue for him at times the other day, having won the first set. Maybe, he also started slowly in both sets. I think the first set he was down a break. Same in the second set. There was a lengthy fourth game from memory, a 2-1 when he eventually broke back with quite a lot of juices. And then suddenly, he's in a pretty good position in the set, and he suddenly, loses what seems to be a pretty good advantage. So I don't know if this concentration issue, which he told me a year ago he'd sort of stamped out, whether that still is an issue against softer opponents. I think it'll be interesting if he plays Jari in the semi-finals, because then we might just see him dialed in, and then he might be, fantastic. And by the way, because of the nature of these tournaments and because of his ability, I think he could easily win both here and in Rio. Maybe, I don't know what the field is like in Rio. It's a 500, but I wouldn't imagine it's much tougher. They seem to just sort of replicate each other. Maybe a few more Brazilians there and one or two less Argentinians. But we could see him win these two tournaments. But I don't know if that will tell us any more about him.
Yeah, I mean, Rio is, as you said, very similar. When it comes to the top 8 seeds, I believe they are actually the exact same. When I'm looking at the entry list, like in regards to players who weren't in Buenos Aires, I don't know if there's a single one actually. Like literally in the main row of Rio, I don't see a single player that wasn't there this week. So
I mean,
yeah, it's
it's just, I
literally
mean,
the same event.
I didn't
Well,
even check
other than
that.
the wildcards, as you said, of course, Thiago Monteiro, Gustavo Haide, Joao Fonseca, but
Yeah.
are any of them a real threat to Carlos? Obviously not. So yeah, other than the wildcards, I think it's literally the same field, Buenos Aires or Rio. So the only thing that has changed is the category of the event. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't. One or two occasions, I thought about, just checking to see if Stan was going to be there, if Cam was going to be there, and I just thought, well, you're not going to come to Buenos Aires and not go to Rio. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
probably why they do the 250 first and the
It's the other way
500
around. If anything, it's going to be the other way around. Someone playing
Yeah,
Rio
just
and not
Rio.
playing Buenos Aires. But as it turns out, this year, no one actually tried to pull this off. Like, literally, the top 8 seeds in Buenos Aires were Alcaraz, Nori, Jari, Cerundolo, Echeverry, Baez, Jere, Fields. And that's the top 8 seeds in Rio de Janeiro as well. And I do think that the main draw field is actually identical as well. Obviously,
Yeah.
Altmaier and Cilic have already pulled out, but it hasn't
Are the
changed all
players
that
on?
much.
Are the players on court warming up? By the way,
Let me see. I actually haven't checked yet.
because actually I have no clue. You can probably guess that I'm not actually on the court right now. I know you can see a bit of clay behind me
Well,
and
we
some
we can
greenery,
see
but
it. I don't have to
well, yeah, I
guess.
assume unless it's in front of me, it could be right in front of me, and they've suddenly let me on the court. But
Could
we
be,
don't
yes.
have those privileges just yet.
Well, I have I
But
have
yeah,
I have the feed on, but let me see if they're actually starting or is it the warm up because I don't know.
for Carlos
Um,
is probably the same.
that's what I don't know. If it's the warm up, no, I think they will actually be starting. Yeah, so
All right, cool. I'll let you
I think
go.
we are
I'm gonna
starting.
I'm gonna go
Yeah.
rush in and share a screen so you've got the score on. And everyone, thanks for tuning in. There's my sister in the live chat. Hello, Ashley. Two Ashleys in the chat, so that's great. And enjoy the match. I'll speak to you soon.
Can we get more Ashleys in the chat? I think we can. There's been a few more.
Are
Ashley
there any
Woods
famous
as well, I think.
Are
Yeah.
there any famous tennis Ashleys? I don't know of any.
Ashley.
So look at the ball kids saying hello. Look, hey, talking tennis. Estamos hablando de tenis. Mira, ellos quieren participar. Mira, vamos a terminar nuestro.
Oh.
¿Quién?
Hello.
Diego Schwartzman is the best player according to this guy. So there you go. You heard it here first. Anyway, I'll speak to you soon. Ciao. Bye bye.
Nurlan is in the chat. Yeah, if they saw that Nurlan was in the chat, they would have like just said hi to Nurlan. And John Silk, who is that? Damian Kust, who is that? Nurlan Ramazanov. That's the character. That's what they would have said. But anyway, we have the players on the court. Indeed, Andrea Vavassori is starting. Rick Ashley would never give him up, but he is not in the chat, I think, or at least we haven't seen him yet in the chat, I suppose. But yeah, Andrea Vavassori starting it on serve. Fair deal of up already while I was talking to John. And yeah, let's see. I mean, sort of compared to Carabelli last night, at least Vavassori has that bigger serve. At least he has like more ability to mix up play as well. So there might be some chances for him. There's a high five as well already at the net between the two guys. That was a funny point. Serving volleys. He's gonna do it a lot, by the way. Like I don't want to say he's like a classic servant volleyer. He kind of does it if he wants to. However, he does pull that off a lot, even on clay. And he actually played this pretty good half volley, which made Carlos sort of struggle not to run into the net. And in the end, he actually wasn't able to avoid it. So 3 game points right now for Vavassori, for whom obviously this would be the biggest win of his career. He played number 3 Daniel Medvedev last year at ATP Masters 1000 Madrid. That was a decent match. Like he wasn't, blown away. It was that tournament when he defeated Murray as well, which was a big win. Needless to say, Murray on clay and also like post prime Murray, but it's still a big thing for someone who's outside the top 100. And for a while, I mean, wasn't even focusing on singles anymore, then just kind of decided to start doing it and achieved even better results than before. So it was big for him. He played Medvedev. He didn't actually fare all that poorly to me. I believe he actually was pretty good. So this is obviously the chance for Vavassori to get the biggest win of his career if he can pull this off. Nurlan, what did I do yesterday? What am I supposed to do? Yeah, okay. Of course, Nurlan. Yes, I'm up. This is funny. I can't wait to see like John reacting to this. When you show up in the chat, in a week or so, and he's gonna be very surprised when you ask him to stand up. But yeah, I did stand up for you. Hope you're pleased. Anyway, Vavassori actually holds the first game. It was pretty tough at one point. I mean, it got from 40 love to 40-30 with a couple of, let's say, pretty spotty decision-making errors. However, anyway, Vavassori holds, and this should be a more serve-reliant match than against Ugo Carabelli for Alcaraz, where both guys were like basically, Ugo Carabelli was winning like 40% of his service points, Alcaraz about 50. I don't think we're gonna see the same today. It's probably going to be more of a usual breakdown, with Vavassori being obviously a pretty big server, sometimes servant volleying as well. Definitely a player who can use that early aggression that his serve crafts for him, that his serve gives him. And Alcaraz, we'll see. I mean, as I said, yesterday was a pretty nice match for him in terms of getting rhythm, I think. So maybe we're just going to see a much cleaner, much more efficient version of Alcaraz. Vavassori blocking his returns here, but yeah, that way it's not really going to work out. Like it just really set up for Alcaraz to, for that +1 forehand to be huge from him. So we'll see if he tries to do something different, because the way he approached this block return was, just not good enough. Another block return here. This one is a little better though. But Alcaraz approaches the net and should win the point easily. He does indeed. Sorry, I'm drinking so much water, but a couple of hours ago, I was out and had a couple of beers, and now it's all coming back to me now. And basically, I will be drinking a fountain of water during this stream. But of course, it shouldn't really impact your experience in any way. You might see it on my camera though. That's a bit of a better return from Vavassori, and it's a great return 1-2 punch actually. He just blasts it completely, love 40. He decides to go for it, gets a shorter ball, and capitalizes on it easily as well. But yeah, compared to Carabelli, Vavassori at least has that edge that he can like try to throw Carlos off. He can be really aggressive. He can take the racket out of his hands potentially if he's playing very well. So it should be a more competitive match, I would say. Obviously, against Carabelli, it was pretty different because Camilo actually got to Carlos in the second set, and as we said, could have taken it to the Fed. However, in like the best moments of Alcaraz, it never really felt competitive. Here, it's actually possible for Vavassori to be like, more, let's say, just more willing to go forward and just keep pushing Alcaraz. Whether he can do it with enough, accuracy, probably not. But it's still a better matchup for Vavassori than it was for Ugo Carabelli for sure. And that was a couple of great points from the Italian, actually. The sort of saber, even in a way, that got him the second point of the game, but it's still Alcaraz holding one game all. And both games went the same way in terms of the server getting a 40 love lead, then losing the next 2 points, but clinching it on the first opportunity. Let's see if Vavassori can keep it up and stay on serve here. Okay, that's a pretty good second serve. The angle, even quite a lot of pace on it. And it does get a forehand return forced error from Carlos. As we were talking about with John like 10 minutes ago, it is looking like a fairly light draw to the title for Alcaraz right now. It wasn't exactly like that when it comes to the field right away, but the semifinals now look like the only problem round. So don't be sort of surprised if at any point of the stream I will be sort of kind of automatically putting in Carlos in the semis, or like saying, can Vavassori actually keep, I don't know, the scoreline respectable? Because that's kind of what we're going for here. Obviously, if it changes during the match, if we actually have Vavassori with a chance to clinch it, I would be more than willing to see that, But just sort of thinking about this matchup before we get into the actual encounter, it does feel very lopsided in the end. But, well, who knows? Maybe Vavassori can hold a few times and then put on some pressure that Alcaraz won't be expecting. And maybe you're going to see some more of that rust that was there yesterday for the Spaniard. Since the beginning of the 2023 season, Carlos Alcaraz has only lost to a player ranked outside the top 50 once, and that was, of course, Fabian Marozsan at ATP Masters 1000 Rome 2023. So, it would be a monumental win for Vavassori. I would actually say that this would be much bigger. This would be a bigger upset than Marozsan beating Alcaraz. I don't know if that holds up odds wise, but in my opinion, it would actually be much bigger because of the the explosive potential of both guys, and how Marozsan can really take the racket out of your hands, whereas Vavassori is. Well, it's a tricky play style. He can definitely make things uncomfortable for the opponent. It's not like he doesn't have the weapons, but it's still like not much compared to Marozsan, right? So I would say this would be bigger. This would be a more monumental upset, yes. Vavassori's best win so far on the ATP Tour was actually beating Jere in the second round, who was number 35. Before that, he also had a win over Miomir Kecmanovic at last year's Roland Garros, where he made the second round, winning against Kecmanovic in like 5 hours. and then losing to Genaro Alberto Olivieri in the second round. Still wild when you think about it that Genaro Alberto Olivieri was in the third round of the French Open, but yeah, he was. Sinner out of sorts in the first set, but Milos can't take advantage. Shame as he played quite well, says Matthew. Thank you for that. If you can sort of, if you're watching Sinner Raonic, if you can give us a comment from time to time, that would be helpful, as I'm not. I see that Sinner has been, Sinner won the first set 7-4 in the tiebreak. But previously, he had 2 set points as well, Raonic at 4-5. So yeah, as you said, definitely a threat. And I see that he basically hasn't been threatened on serve whatsoever, Raonic. Like, he's only lost a few points besides that break in the opening set. But yeah, the first few matches, the bits of that I saw from Raonic against Bublik especially, that was still class, The guy might not be playing too often, the guy might not be playing too frequently, but he still has that quality. And if he's healthy, he might still be a threat in individual matches at least. And who knows, maybe he actually finds some big runs. I mean, Rotterdam quarterfinals is already pretty huge, obviously. Should we discuss the death of Alexei Navalny? I don't know if I know who that is. I will Google it now. I don't think that's a tennis player. Alexei Navalny, Russian opposition leader. Okay, yeah, I don't know anything about that. So I'm probably gonna just stick to tennis then. I live in a bit of a bubble, where tennis is the only thing in the world, and I only read tennis news actually. So, yeah, I know it's weird, but that's who I am. I saw this big French lad win Nottingham. Yeah, I think Ashley, you said that you were gonna go there, right? To that challenger. Giovanni Pecci Pericard, obviously, is the French lad that you're talking about. Giovanni lost in the first round next week to Benoit Paire, and I guess the main thing is whether he's actually going to be able to put in results week in, week out. But certainly that Nottingham run was very impressive in how he was actually able to sort of get his ground game to be a thing as well. Like, he wasn't just, I don't know, crashing his second serves and blasting every ball hoping to hit a winner. He was actually willing to grind. He was actually willing to use the athleticism he has, because he's not a bad athlete to me. Like, he isn't the best when it comes to footwork. He isn't the fastest, but I think he's actually pretty good in terms of like athleticism, flexibility, and yeah, he was able to really rely on that in that Nottingham run. And Ashley says that he can serve really big, maybe top 100. I think top 100 in the future is like a guarantee for him. It's a bit of a Christopher Eubanks type of deal to me. Like, he will certainly have some big results. I don't know if he'll ever be consistent with that, but I think he's gonna have the results at least 1 year, just have a big main tour run somewhere, like he did in Antwerp actually last year, right? Quarterfinal. I think at some point he's gonna I believe at some point he's going to break the top 100. I don't know if it's going to be this year. I would still say no, but I think at some point in the future it's kind of. Oh, and Sinner apparently, yeah. Matthew says that Sinner won the retirement more than a walkover, but yeah, Raonic just retired, so it's actually the second event for Milos this year, right? And the second one from which he retires. So, well, for the past 8-7 years, well, maybe it's a stretch to say 8 or 7 years, but for the past 5 years or so, Raonic has been injured more than healthy, and seems like that's still not leaving him. That's a wild point here, and I think Vavassori is gonna win it. Yes, he does. Alcaraz with a bit of like a bailout net approach. I don't really think it was prepared. I don't really think it was planned or like well thought out. And Vavassori eventually wins this exchange with them both at the net. Vavassori lobbing Alcaraz. Carlos actually found this sort of run around response of the backhand side, but eventually he misses the pass, and it's breakpoint for the Italian qualifier. The first serve is in, But Alcaraz can't do much about it. However, this slice error from Vavassori is pretty horrific. Obviously, that's not something you can really afford in a matchup like this. And yeah, just trying to slice the ball back to your opponent. So the first breakpoint is gone. Murphy says that Raonic was walking gingerly as well after that medical timeout. I thought you were a fan of John Nurlan. Ashley says that Milos should call it a day. I can definitely understand that sentiment. You know, he's been having a very rough time just playing a few matches in a row. Just yeah, getting that body right for just a few matches. He's been having a hard time with that. And after all, that's something you really need to have in order to achieve big results. And well, still quarterfinals this week is really nice, but against the Minor, he wasn't able to compete until the end at the Australian Open. Against Sinner, the history repeated itself. By the way, Andrea Vavassori, what the hell is that backhand return? Really steps into it of that one-hander, sort of like Florin Merja style, if you remember that Romanian doubles specialist. It's a very random reference, but of course he was in the top 10 of the doubles rankings. He was a very good junior as well, so maybe someone still does, but he kind of played his one-handed backhand returns pretty similar to how Vavassori fired that return here. Now he's just blocking it, and it seems that Alcaraz should be able to put this point away. Not really, but eventually he forces out an error from Vavassori. It seems like whenever Vavassori blocks that return, it's not gonna do much. Like the slices, most of the time Alcaraz just capitalizes on that and puts it away. Ashley, where am I from? I'm from Poland. And that's gonna be 2 games all. Alcaraz with a pretty nice forehand volley finish. I thought he might be like actually on the softer side, like too soft, and he might net it, but it went over. When it comes to that discussion that we have here, Ashley Partridge saying that Carlos doesn't look the same player anymore. I guess it's about the last 6 months or so. He definitely has to perform in like the next 4 or 5 months, right? Like that's the part of the season where we usually see him at his strongest. I think even though he won US Open in 2022, he was actually at his best quality wise that year in like Madrid, Barcelona, Sunshine Double, these sort of events. And last year it's repeated itself, right? I mean the best version of Alcaraz that we saw last year was literally Sunshine Double, was Madrid, was Barcelona, was Roland Garros, until the semis as well, or even in the semis before the cramps. Wimbledon, obviously, that also sort of got extended to that part of the season. But yeah, if I think the time to worry for Alcaraz will be especially if he like doesn't perform in the at Indian Wells, for example, because this tournament, the way it's kind of lining up for now, we sort of expect him to be okay even with his B game, maybe besides that semifinal against Jari or Echeverry. So it's definitely a legitimate question what John posed earlier on the stream. You know that even in Rio we might not actually learn all that much about Carlos Alcaraz so far because like it's gonna be the same field literally. Buenos Aires, Rio, the only difference is the category, the points, but the field is actually going to be 100% similar or like very similar. Only the qualifiers will be different. So. Anyway, Andrea Vavassori might be about to hold again, and indeed he does, 3-2. So far it's a great start for the Italian. And we have Nick in the chat as well. Is Alcaraz the best natural surfaces player other than Djokovic on tour? I was actually thinking about this just when I was talking about Wimbledon, and well, maybe not necessarily if he's the best natural surfaces player, but certainly that's where we see him at his strongest a lot of the time. So I would say, yeah, I mean, he's definitely the best natural surfaces player on other than Djokovic on tour right now. We might give a bit of a benefit of the doubt to Sinner, but the thing is that Sinner, like, yeah, we just have to wait and see sort of how he does on grass clay this year after making that big jump. And who else is there really, right? I mean, there's no other comparison because if you have someone really good on clay, like Zverev, he's not really that amazing on grass. Same goes for Rune, I suppose. Medvedev, so basically Alcaraz has to be the best natural surfaces player other than Djokovic on tour. He might even be the best natural surfaces player, period, right now on tour. But I guess for that, we also had to sort of wait and see how the clay season goes. Alcaraz is a victim of his own success. People's expectations are so high that any drop in results and people say he's not the same. It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with that. I think I don't know if this actually impacts him. So like, I can't really say that he's a victim of his own success because that's after all that's only really like us talking. You know, people on Twitter talking, people on social media talking. So maybe it doesn't actually influence him in any way, and then he's not, a victim of in any case. But I agree with that. Obviously, ever since I first saw Carlos Alcaraz, play, it was probably when he was like 15. Yeah, I think 15 when he beat Yannick Sinner in his first challenger match actually, and he was 15, Sinner was 17, and it was hailed as this amazing battle of future prospects, which I think in hindsight, obviously, it's even better than we thought at the time. And since that match, I was like extremely certain about Carlos Alcaraz. I was like, this guy's gonna win slams, no doubt about it. Just basically keep him there. And I've had this insane confidence in Carlos Alcaraz. However, the people that haven't really found that, or the people who haven't sort of just discovered that watching Alcaraz, never really felt like that. I think anytime he loses, there's a lot of people saying that, well, he is done, he is overhyped. I mean, there are some concerns right now, for sure. I can't deny that, especially with the emergence of Sinner, that I think that's actually a serious threat to Carlos Alcaraz because obviously the matchup isn't nice for him. He's been struggling against Yannick, and at the same time, it just kind of means that he's not going to dominate the tour, in the next 10 years or so. Whereas previously, before Sinner's emergence, before Sinner's rise to the very top of the sport in the latter half of 2023, we probably thought that. So there are some issues for sure, but all in all, obviously, he's one of the best free players in the sport right now. Whether you place him first ahead of Djokovic or second behind Sinner or Djokovic, that's really personal preference to me at the moment, but he is clearly among the top three. And after all, at 20, what else can you really want? Sinner is mainly hardcourt, Nick. Yeah, I mean, definitely there is some potential in Sinner to be an all-court player. I mean, he's kind of been one throughout his career, but when it comes to the big highlights so far, yeah, it's been hardcourts, and it's definitely like the true bounce, the sort of predictability of the courts. It suits him for sure. And Alcaraz, with the more inventive nature of his game, the drop shot as well, the net approaches, the ability to sort of come up with something both in terms of attack and defense, both in terms of just being crafty when it comes to constructing points, but also when it comes to just defending. I feel like the natural surfaces actually bring out a lot of that from him. Like on hard courts, he can kind of become a bit too robotic, if you may. Like he can be a little too maybe eager to hit a big counter and not really go deep in the point and like come up with a fancy defensive resource of sorts, rely on that speed that he has. whereas that doesn't really show up on hard courts. Whereas on clay, on grass, I feel like these assets of his, which are actually one of the things that make him great, they kind of get brought up to, brought to light even more, let's say. Again, a pretty tough game for Alcaraz right now. So, this match so far, you could argue that Vavassori has been a better player, and no one can really say a thing about that. Does it still feel like, one break can really end the set for Alcaraz? Probably, but, well, end the set for Vavassori, I mean, probably, but the first 6 games at least, I feel like we can easily say that Vavassori has been the stronger player so far. Obviously, we have Simone Bolelli here in the box of Andrea Vavassori. They have been playing doubles together recently, and they were in the Australian Open final, losing to Rohan Bopana and Matthew Ebden. Bolelli getting to that Australian Open final after 9 years. In 2015, he won with Fabio Fognini. For Vavassori, it was the biggest run of his career. And he's still not willing to give up singles, and probably he's right not to do it, obviously, as he clearly has a lot to give in both competitions. There was a point in his career, I think it was around maybe 2022, when for about 6 months he actually didn't play singles at all. So there was a moment when we all thought that maybe Vavassori already sort of just, is done with singles and he's just going to be focusing on doubles. But I actually heard from him that it was sort of a Bundesliga experience, when he played the German league alongside Dustin Brown as well in his club, and Dustin Brown actually helped him sort of return to his singles, just find his singles game again and be more aggressive with it, apparently. So that's a nice story that I've heard from him as well. And now, of course, we have Andrea Vavassori around the top 150 in singles and being one of the best doubles players on the planet. I mean, you kind of have to be, right? You kind of have to say that, I guess, if if he made the Australian Open final, right? That was a weird shot, though. He's fairly love up here, but he goes for this fake drop shot, which obviously is a stunning shot if you make it, but if you don't, it does look a little weird. And why did you go for that in the first place? But yeah, he just overcooks it a little bit. To be fair, would have been a point if he makes it. Like Alcaraz went the other way. Now that's some pretty nice recovery from Alcaraz, backhand down the line pass, and I think Vavassori actually had a play on it, but he lets it go, and it's 30 all now. Maybe Alcaraz will make a push here. So far, he hasn't really been doing that in this match. But yeah, I mean, that was more or less what I was talking about like 5 minutes ago, that this is the kind of play that we're not going to see from him on hard courts. And I like that the natural surfaces definitely bring out this in him. Just this ability to rely on the speed, on how athletic he is, and turn points around in a creative manner, if you may. This is on Vavassori, though, and this is the first breakpoint for Alcaraz now. Andrea Vavassori misfiring on that +1 forehand and like really getting it middle of the net, nothing else. Nick says that Sinner is underrated on clay. Where is Sinner rated on clay in the first place, I guess, is the question here. But overall, I probably would agree. Like, we probably forget how close Sinner was to a Monte Carlo title last year, right? Because he won the opening set in the semis against Rune, 6-1. And then he was also in a good position to win the second. He was in a decent position to threaten the third as well. It was just Rune sort of, as time went on, as also the conditions got heavier, right? Because there were the rain delays and that stuff. I think as sort of the match went on, he was Rune was just counter punching better, was defending better. It was tougher for Sinner to hit through the court. But I think we probably forget a lot of the time how close Sinner was to picking up the title, because you get him against Rublev in the final, and I think he pulls it off. So it certainly could have been a a very smooth event for Sinner and maybe his first ATP 1000 title right away. Eventually, he didn't manage to pull it off, but it's something to think about sort of going forwards. And when it comes to Yannick on this on clay, and let's say from April it will be more relevant, obviously, but he was actually very close to getting that title. My stream has broken down, not in the best moment because Vavassori was still in trouble at deuce, but I see he has held, so at least we know that. I hope that until the next game I'm gonna be able to fix it, although it kind of doesn't rely on me. It kind of doesn't depend on me. I guess I will switch to another one then. It might be a bit delayed compared to the scoreboard that we have on the screen, but we're gonna have to manage it somehow. Yeah, hopefully it will be fixed in a second, but for now I'm just gonna use a different one, I suppose. Oops. Sorry, guys, that's the sound on the stream. I like how this tournament is, by the way. Like the TV production here is pretty weird as well. Like it's pretty unique, but in a good way. Like when you actually see the court, when you actually see the points, it's kind of like the usual. However, when we see the players on the bench, we often get this camera where like it's very focused on the player. Everything else is a blur, and like the image quality is extremely high. It's definitely pretty unique when it comes to the coverage of other events. I'm gonna be back in 10 seconds. Just I'm just gonna get that water a little colder for in my refrigerator for a while. But anyway, Carlos Alcaraz 3-4 down, about to serve, and as we said earlier, I mean this has been a rough match for him. This has been a very tough encounter for him so far. With every game that Vavassori holds, with every single game on serve that he can sort of keep up with Alcaraz, the pressure will be rising on Carlos. And who knows, maybe we're actually going to see any result of that, any potential drawback for him. But yeah, that's very makeable. Vavassori tries to play this second serve return of the backhand side that's just heavy, deep, but he misses it. So fairly low for Alcaraz, and it does feel like he's gonna get a bit of an easier passage through to the to 4-all, to leveling the match once again. At least the first 2 points were missed returns by the Italian. Now the return is in. It's probably not gonna be good enough though. Yeah, Carlos isn't too confident on his +1 opportunities, but then again, you can see that it's pretty windy as well in Buenos Aires today, so maybe some of that can be put to that hampering the players. But anyway, that forehand approach, which maybe wasn't perfect, but it still gives him the point. So 40 love. And let's see how smoothly he can take that 8th game. And backhand down the line, +1 shot, yes. Vavassori just running around that his backhand and hitting the forehand return from very deep in the court, but not doing too much with it, and just leaving half of the court open, more or less, for Alcaraz to attack it. So 4 games all. Again, let's see if Vavassori can keep holding, but certainly so far he's at least holding his own, in this match. And Potentially, you could even call him the better player so far. Big serve, but yeah, a little optimistic on this approach. I think he might still win the point, actually, yes. Pretty huge serve from him. Then maybe the approach wasn't perfect. Alcaraz eventually lobs him, but Vavassori has enough time to run around it. He has enough time to find this forehand, and he actually gets a pretty good angle on it as well. Alcaraz on the stretch isn't able to play it back, so all in all, another sort of great, crafty point for the Italian, and just the way he was able to find a couple of good shot making options here was enough to eventually give him the point, even if he was kind of lost a couple of times. He serve and volleys here on the second serve. It's a good kicker. Alcaraz just throws it out like 2 meters. 30 love up and still doing very, very well. Another unreturned serve here. So 40 love, and it seems like it should be a straightforward hold for the Italian. That's indeed what we get. I mean, that was 3 unreturned serves after that one highlight reel point in the beginning of the set. So that's now 5 for Vavassori and still no breaks in this match. So obviously, as I said at the very beginning, this isn't going to be an Ugo Carabelli Alcaraz match in terms of the dynamics of of serve return, but still, it's 9 holds for now. And it's actually been Vavassori who's been like putting more pressure on Alcaraz. Both players have only saved 1 breakpoint though, so at least in terms of the actual chances, it's even. But it does seem like Alcaraz has been in trouble a bit more often, or like at least let's say in minimal trouble, the 15-30s, the low 30s. There was a fault on my TV, Matthew says. Yeah, maybe that's why my stream isn't working. My sort of original streaming option still isn't going, but we're using something different right now. Alcaraz probably would get bored if he tried to play. If he tried to play what? Sayedi? I have no clue. Steady, maybe. Yeah, I guess maybe. I guess probably steady. Yeah, I mean he does like the flashy play for sure. Maybe sometimes too much, but after all, probably it's also part of what makes him, well, first of all, entertaining, but also yeah, for him to sort of keep up that intensity high. It's actually needed, right? So yeah, steady. Josh says that Alcaraz is second in grass. Yeah, I mean, there's no real competition between Djokovic, Alcaraz in the field right now. We'll see what happens by Wimbledon. Obviously, right now, with how little grass we have on the circuit, it's kind of like every single month can change a lot. But yeah, it's hard to find a good competitor for Alcaraz and Djokovic on grass at the moment. I would still say that Alcaraz is probably the more upset prone player by Wimbledon by the grass season. But obviously last year he won both Queens and Wimbledon, so like what else you can really want out of your grass season? But yeah, these two clearly dominate the rest of the field, or at least dominated it in 2023. Maybe by 2024 we're gonna get someone fighting back. probably Sinner. I mean, that's needless to say, that's probably the best option. Let's see. Alcaraz trying to serve to stay in the set. So far, pretty okay. There was a 15-all point here, but he gets a shorter return and punishes it right away. Another block return from Vavassori. This one is actually a little more uncomfortable for Alcaraz. A couple of slices, and Vavassori is back in the point, tries to take over with the forehand here. And he's actually attacking. Has to lift it though here. So again, he's back to slicing. And that's going to be a really good point if he can win this. And he does. I mean, what a rally from him, really. The way he was able to redirect that backhand down the line, like that was insane. Because of a one-hander, this is really tough. Eventually, he also gets like a jumping forehand type of chance. He manages to take it as well, and Carlos can't slice it back. So 30-all, and Vavassori is 2 points away from the set now. And yeah, I mean, so far he's been playing flawless basically when it comes to his abilities, his repertoire. A really crucial point now. And Alcaraz hasn't found that first serve, so let's see if Vavassori can actually punish it or attack it right away. We've seen some big returns, probably more so on the outside rather than use side. This one is just rolling it back, but he is in the point now, and he decides to crack this inside in forehand, which I think he has just missed. But this very feasibly could have been a Vavassori set point, So Alcaraz is definitely balancing on a very thin line here and is serving his fans a bit of a thriller type of set for now, which probably they weren't expecting. And again, Vavassori gets a chance on the inside in forehand and misses it. So a couple of points in a row where really there could have been something there. He could have found that and potentially won the point, especially the previous one, the one at 30-all. Like if he makes that forehand, he probably wins the point. This one, I think it still would have been live. Like Alcaraz still would have been in it. However, certainly a couple of makeable shots and just slight missed opportunities for the Italian. 5 games. Oh, let's see if Alcaraz can put on some pressure, and this is just a fantastic drop shot. I mean, the way he hits it, he hit it as well. Vavassori just, back 2 meters behind the baseline, fully expecting another big blow that Alcaraz can sort of keep up the pressure with after that down the line backhand. And Alcaraz just steps in for that forehand dropper, which is, well, even if Vavassori was close to the baseline, I think he would have probably lost the point. And as he was in the trenches, more or less, no chance to get it whatsoever. Is this going to be a better game for Carlos? Let's see. Well, the Italian with an interesting play here, serve and volleying, but after a first serve, but after a very slow first serve with a lot of spin on it, and it actually gets an error from Alcaraz. You could see how much the ball was sort of swirling around the air. Maybe it's also the wind that kind of helped it out, but it definitely made it quite tough for Alcaraz to find any sort of reliable pass, and he actually doesn't get there. So 30-15 Vavassori now. Big serve down the tee gets him the point. A bit of frustration right now for the Spaniard, who obviously wasn't expecting himself, I would assume, to be in this position after 10 games and to sort of just not have a response for what Vavassori is doing, right? Because it's not like it's not like yesterday's match, really, where Alcaraz was like dominating from start to finish, more or less. If he was losing games, it was kind of just all him. Today, he actually is sort of put into uncomfortable spots by Vavassori as well. And he's not exactly clawing his way out of them for now. And very, very soon, we might have a 6-5 lead for the Italian, which would, of course, mean that he has at least secured a tiebreak against Carlos Alcaraz. Carlos looks like he might not be willing to give up on this game yet. Indeed, he plays this nice point with a couple of forehands where he just spreads the court, eventually gets Vavassori on the run, and, well, the Italian is not exactly at his best there. Trying to counter a shot like that, trying to find this running pass, most of the time he's not going to pull it off. But it still sort of took withstanding that early aggression in the point from Vavassori for Alcaraz to get back into neutral gear first and then eventually take over. One more game point for Vavassori, though, to get a 6-5 lead. First serve is not in. He was trying to serve and volley as well. And it's a double fault as he really goes after his second serve here. We'll see if that ends up costing him, since this is definitely a bit of a crucial moment of the set. I see that my original stream is already working, so I guess I'm gonna wait for the game to be over now. Switch during the changeover. But yeah, we are at deuce. Vavassori had 2 points for a 6-5 lead. Let's see what he can pull off here. Second serve, and he actually approaches on it as well and gets a very easy ball from Alcaraz. This sort of like off-pace venture to the net from Vavassori that was, well, I don't know if really smart, but it certainly confused Alcaraz completely, as Carlos just feeds him a very easy sort of neutral backhand return down the middle. Vavassori is right away there and just puts it away with a soft forehand volley. So another game point for him, 6-5, which would be obviously a nice position for him to sort of go out and attack Alcaraz on the next game. Another serve and volley attempt, and this is just straight up perfect, you know. Here Alcaraz actually got a pretty low dipping return at Vavassori, and it didn't matter. The Italian just comes up with this probably half volley. I would have to watch the replay, honestly. I don't know if it bounced or not, but I would assume it was a half volley and manages to put it away. 6-5. He has a tiebreak at least. What's the score, says Nick? 7 minutes ago. It's 6-5 Vavassori by now. John was supposed to put the scoreboard on the screen for us, but maybe he has forgot about it. Grass costs a lot to install and maintain. Of course, Ghosty, yeah, that's why we don't really see it too much anymore, and it will never sort of progress past that stage where it is right now, where it's just a novelty. Who won the Sinner Raonic match? Yes, Milos retired at 6-7, 1-all. And Alcaraz is just about to serve to stay in the opening set. Vavassori has secured the tiebreak. This is that game where he can just get out and probably hit a couple of better shots. More aggressive, you know, just see if he can shake anything up for himself. See if he can rattle Alcaraz a little bit. And so far, I mean, he gets the first point. It wasn't exactly one of these very free, sort of freely hit rallies, but he manages to get there after an Alcaraz forehand volley miss. So love 15, and this might be getting tricky for the Spaniard. I don't think this return should be doing much damage to Alcaraz, though. Yeah. Again, like when the chopped return from Vavassori is just, well, it doesn't have, let's say, enough slip. It doesn't really skid off the court, which is hard to pull off on clay, admittedly. But if it just sits up there mid court, very high for Alcaraz to attack it with the +1 forehand, it's going to be really tough for Vavassori to win a point. And the Italians like fully in this disrupt Alcaraz mode in this game, it seems, because after the first serve he just runs towards the net to try to get some doubt into Alcaraz, I guess. Maybe make him miss with just the sheer net presence. But there was so much momentum, there was so much timing advantage for the Spaniard here that nothing really could have happened from that position to him. Again, he is in trouble after the first shot, but he manages to get an error out of Carlos here. I think at least he is, the chair umpire is coming to check the mark, but I would assume that it is it is out indeed. So 30 all, and again, Carlos Alcaraz finds himself 2 points away from losing the set, or in other words, Andrea Vavassori finds himself 2 points away from winning the set as well. A very similar situation, of course, was last Alcaraz service game, 4-5, 30 all, and then a couple of sort of attack opportunities with the forehand inside in for Vavassori that he didn't capitalize on. This point is not going to last too long, though. Yeah, it's just a serve and volley for Carlos that he has to take advantage of. Again, very easy to put it away here, so he doesn't make it too much of a hassle, and he has that point to get him into the tiebreak. And still, I mean, Vavassori has done extremely well so far to keep pushing Alcaraz, to keep up with him, and just stick around. And it's going to be a tiebreak indeed. Let's see what Andrea Vavassori can bring to the table in this opening set tiebreak. Needless to say, it is very important for him to take this set. You kind of expect, like, if he loses it, there might be some, drop in self-belief. There might be some drop in confidence, and just Alcaraz might find it easier to, let's say, progress with the match. Let's say easier to break him down in the second set. Whereas if he takes the opener, everything is there. He has been, let's say, even we can call him the better player, I think. And let's see if that holds up in the tiebreak. So far, not really. The first mini break of the set of the tiebreak goes to Carlos Alcaraz. Vavassori wasn't able to maintain any early pressure coming from the serve, and then Carlos gets a couple of heavy forehands in and eventually gets the point. So I guess he only needs to hold his points on serve from here, but of course it's still very far from a position where you can actually clinch a set with that. He would have to win the next 6 points on serve, and it's also obviously clay, so it's not going to be that easy. However, the +1 shot here, the forehand drop shot, again, so well hidden. And also we've been talking about this. I remember talking about this on the Ugo Carabelli match yesterday, but the sheer ability for Alcaraz to disguise it and just make the opponent question whether it's going to be a big forehand or the drop shot. Very often it does give him a lot of easier points than he would be getting usually. And here I think was a very good example where Vavassori just doesn't know what to do, because he might get hit with a big one and he might get drop shotted. And again, he does get drop shotted. And this one was just even better disguised. He's kind of laughing about it, Alcaraz, as well. He was in no position to hit a drop shot here, but you can see on the replay how he instantly regrips. He's actually one of these players who kind of regrips for a drop shot. Some players don't do it, like, I don't know, Bernie Tomek doesn't, but he actually regrips very quickly here and just pulls off this, again, very inventive drop shot, despite not really being in a position to it even. Like, it was so close to his body. But yeah, he gets the third point as well. 2 consecutive drop shot winners, and Vavassori is under a lot of pressure right now to win his points on serve. And maybe some of that pressure is showing up here as he misses a regular slice. And that's already 4 love Carlos Alcaraz, 2 mini breaks. Has he taken the wind out of Vavassori's sails yet, or is the Italian going to be able to mount and what would have been a sensation? What would be a sensational comeback, in this first set tiebreak? Vavassori approaching the net, and he can't make this forehand volley. So again, very ballsy. Like, he just straight up goes for it, but I don't know. I mean, on second serve, most of the time it's not going to work out for you unless the kicker is so good. And some occasions previously it was, but 5 love Alcaraz, 2 serves as well. Kind of hard to see him blowing the set from this position. Like, whichever player it was, right? It would be pretty hard to do it, but maybe. Let's see how the next point goes. Is it going to be 6 set points Alcaraz, or is he going to have to wait until after the changeover? Yeah, and again, he just gets a couple of heavier forehands. These weren't even that well placed. They weren't even that aggressive, but eventually Vavassori is probably going to crack after one of them, and he does indeed. So it's 6 set points for the Italian, and Alcaraz is about to win the tiebreak, maybe even 7 points to love. One more point on serve for him, and let's see if he can clinch it right away. I think the serve is out, so it's going to have to be on the second serve. Vavassori defending okay here, and Alcaraz actually misses that forehand, which would have been either a winner or a point for or a forcing shot, I think. But anyway, it's 6-1. Still 5 more set points for the Spaniard, who will not be winning this tiebreak 7-2 love. He's actually lost a 7 love tiebreak recently against Tommy Paul in Cincinnati, interestingly, but I don't think he's won one in a while. Obviously not going to happen here, but it will be a 7-1 tiebreak as Vavassori misses this +1 forehand. Was trying to be just take it very early, which honestly the ball was kind of like expecting you to do it. You had to go for it with that pretty short return that Alcaraz gave him. And all in all, it's 7-6 Alcaraz. A very good set from Vavassori, but the tiebreak was just not up to par anymore. Alcaraz pulling off these 2 drop shots in a row as well. It kind of killed all that momentum that Vavassori had sort of built up for himself before the breaker. So eventually we get a pretty easy tiebreak for Alcaraz. Of course, this is not really relevant because in the end it was a 7-1 tiebreak, but the last tiebreak that Carlos won 7-0 was actually last year during the Golden Swing when he beat Dusan Lajovic in the quarterfinals of Rio. I'm a high-functioning, tired person. Interesting, but today there is a bit of a reason for me being tired. All in all, though, last last 2 weeks or so, I've actually had a lot of sleep and a more regular sleeping schedule than obviously in January when there was the Australian Open. So I'm not that bad recently, but today I am quite fatigued. But that's not really tennis related either. Anyway, he took an NTO. Yeah, Milos struggled with injuries for years with injuries. Ashley, we talked about that earlier. I think that Raonic kind of just can't get the body right, and even though he still has the quality, it's a bit of a shame that so far 2 events this year and 2 that he has to retire from. Yeah, Sean, I would say Bernard Tomic is the player who actually doesn't regrip. So that would be pretty fun, sort of to maybe compare these two motions. But I don't think Tomic changes his grip on the forehand drop shot whatsoever. Alcaraz definitely the way he hit that second drop shot in the tiebreak for free love. That was so surprising because he was like not even in an ideal position to do it, and he still regrips very very quickly there and manages to catch Vavassori off guard completely. I'm gonna get that water, but I'll be back in a minute. Well, 10 seconds. Toilet break still for Vavassori, I think, who definitely is the player who needs to rethink what he did in the first set tiebreak and just sort of settle the nerves, because yeah, that wasn't perfect after playing such a good set against the world number 2. It wasn't that he was horrific in the tiebreak, he just never really made an impression, right? Yeah, sorry that we don't have the scoreboard on the screen. John was supposed to provide it, but I guess something must have gone wrong. I don't know, maybe his computer shut down or something. I'm maybe gonna just put a banner on that Alcaraz won the first set or something. Oh, and I actually see John in the background, so maybe he's gonna give us the scoreboard again. Yeah, and he will. So I will not be putting that banner in after all. But yeah, you should get a scoreboard on the screen by right now. Anyway, let's see. Andrea Vavassori is back. Carlos Alcaraz is back. 7-6, and let's see if Vavassori can stop the slight bleeding and if he can actually keep up with Alcaraz in the second set as well. Because until the tiebreak, he was very much doing it in the opener. And that's a very nice forehand inside in from him. Like if he found that at one of these points at 4-5 or 5-4 from his perspective, easily could have had the opening set, But he didn't, and that's tennis for you. There was pressure on that point. He needed to find it in order to win, and he didn't. And here it's like a semi-irrelevant point, right? And he manages to do it. Ambitious serve and volley from Alcaraz now. Definitely needed a bit of luck to do anything with this one here, and he doesn't get that. So love 30 down. Still no breaks in this match, with both players just facing one break point, I believe, in the opening set. Alcaraz falling in slightly more, well, definitely falling in a bit more trouble, I would say, going into the tiebreak. The 30 alls at 4-5 and 5-6. Twice he was 2 points away from losing the set. But obviously, the lopsided nature of the tiebreak kind of changed the outlook of that opening set completely. 15-30 now as he finds a great serve out wide. But yeah, if Alcaraz is going to win this like 7-6, 6-4, I feel like it's again a match that's not going to tell us anything about his game and like what he's going to be able to do when he plays someone like Jari or Echeverry. Like just such a different matchup as well when you play Vavassori, who's serve volleying, who's trying to disrupt your rhythm, who's not really giving you the same ball every time, and it still feels like Alcaraz is kind of progressing on his B game, right? Which is a good ability to have, obviously, and just kind of shows that his quality is stronger than the other players. But it's just a question of like still not knowing that Alcaraz will be able to step it up when needed. Like that's something we haven't seen yet. Kinda seen it in the first tiebreak, I guess. But after all, did he do anything special? The couple of drop shots were cool, but that these were points that the serve set up for him. Like if he hits big forehands on these 2 points, he probably wins them too, right? So it's not obvious. It's not a given that he's going to be able to step it up when the time comes, when the opportunities for other players will be showing up. So that semi-final tomorrow, if he progresses here, let's say, relatively comfortably, that semi-final against Dario or Echeverry, that could be a real show. And he was love 30 down, but he gets out here. He sort of sets himself up for this very wide serve stance here. He's very close to the doubles alley. Vavassori trying to chop it again, trying to block it, but he can't put it into the court. So it's Alcaraz with the first game, love 30, and definitely a crucial moment coming up. Because if Vavassori gets broken, it might be a second set that sort of runs away from him extremely quickly. But yeah, so far, obviously, he's only faced one breakpoint. So if he can keep up that serve quality, he can definitely keep going. It's a question of whether he will be able to, after the disappointment of the opening set, the disappointment of the tiebreak. Even here, I mean, he had a love 30 and wasn't able to threaten Alcaraz really on the next 4 points. We have a bit of a cat and mouse point here brought up by the Vavassori drop shot, but Alcaraz tracks it down and plays it just well enough to give Vavassori, some issues here. I think the Italian still could have made it, but he doesn't. It's a big reaction from Alcaraz as well, even though it's the first point. But I mean, he definitely realizes how crucial that moment is as well. That this second game of the second set, where Vavassori is basically facing, potentially being a set and a breakdown, potentially being out of the match in a way as well. So we can see that there's like more intensity from Carlos. There's more determination in this game already, because he simply realizes how huge this game is for a huge underdog like Vavassori. If you just wanna keep up with a player who's, well, let's be honest, better than you, and you lost the opening set where you had your chances, you didn't take them. Forehand slice from Alcaraz. He was initially wanting to hit this like huge inside out forehand, but then the bounce of the Vavassori shot was actually quite uncomfortable and he couldn't do it. And again, the forehand drop shot, I mean, it's just nasty, Vavassori is defending pretty well. He fends off a backhand down the line, but then Alcaraz is just, yeah, you don't know if it's going to be a big hit coming at you or that dropper again. And how do you even, defend yourself against it? I don't really know. I mean, the backhand down the line did the most of the job, of course, yes, but again, it's just really good court sense from Alcaraz to know when to use this resource. And it's 3 breakpoints for him, although right now it's just 2. Vavassori saving 1 with an unreturned serve. Another unreturned serve here. So after 2 big serves, Vavassori is 30-40 down. So far, he's saved all 3 breakpoints faced in this match, but this is the 4th one. This is the 3rd consecutive one. Can he also pull this off? Maybe another unreturned serve will come to the rescue. I don't think this is in, so it's gonna have to be on the second serve. We've seen different approaches to the second serve from Vavassori. We've seen him serve and volleying with a big kicker. We've seen him going for it. We've seen him staying back a little bit. This is a point where he stays back, and Alcaraz gets the job done. So it's a set and a break up, and especially if he can hold now, that 7-6 free love lead, that would feel absolutely huge. He's a decent mover for sure, but even he wasn't able to cover this forehand corner here. So 7-6 to love. And again, if Alcaraz can hold here, that will be a massive lead. Gets the first point. Vavassori trying to block his forehand return. Not playing it in. He's showing something to the team as well. I'm not really sure what that was. It was like that. I have no clue what that is, but sort of like waving his fingers up and down. Serve and volley from Alcaraz. Vavassori actually gets a pretty good lob in, I think. Let me sort of make sure by just seeing if the point is on the scoreboard, but I think that was in from Andrea, yeah. Had a lot of time after this Alcaraz forehand volley, maybe wasn't perfect, but still, the way he played the lob, not much you can do about it, really. As well on the replay, we can see how spot on it was. Very high, very deep. No reaction from Alcaraz. He knew that was going to be in, but he had no chance to track it down whatsoever. It's a bit of a funky second serve. I think it's out. Yes, it is out. So it's a double fault. 15-30 now on the Alcaraz serve. Of course, it would be very crucial for Vavassori if he can break back here. Still hasn't broken in the match. He had 1 break point. He had a fair few 30-all chances that he wasn't able to capitalize on. Again, it's a near miss on the first serve for Alcaraz, so maybe it will get tricky for him. Just like with his second serves, we've also seen numerous approaches from Vavassori to the second serve return in this match. He gets it pretty heavy, doesn't really let Alcaraz dictate right away, at least. He's defending nicely, but the backhand cross from Alcaraz goes to the net, yeah, and finishes it off. Not much you can do most of the time. I mean, you're just sort of relying on Alcaraz potentially missing here, but he didn't get that error. He didn't draw out that error in this rally. The coach is trying to pump him up here. 30-all. So still 2 points away from the break, still 1 point from a break point, but it was a point he was, at least in the previous rally. Probably took a bit too much of a passive approach to it. This time it's a better +1 forehand from Alcaraz, but Vavassori is still in the rally. Grinding well, but until he eventually can't. With the forehand pace cross coming from Alcaraz being just too much. I think both against Vukarabelli and against Vavassori, that acceleration of the forehand cross has been pretty insane for Alcaraz. Like, it's just not something that the opponents are used to. And obviously, Vukarabelli, Vavassori, they're not main tour players generally, right? They mostly show up in ATP Tour qualifying challengers, but um, it's just very clear that Alcaraz has a bit too much on that side. Like, I don't know if this is something he can rely on really under pressure if he ever falls into it, but just like, when he's pretty comfortable and when he's really ramping it up, cross court forehand, they are really in trouble most of the time. And speaking of perfect forehand lobs, now we get one from Alcaraz. Of course, earlier this game there was a great one from Vavassori, but the Italian slice approach down the line seems like this could be a tricky ball, because we've seen Nicolas Jarry, for example, come up with a lot of these against Wawrinka and getting such good results. I think Jarry's was a little shorter, a little trickier to get the ideal contact point with, whereas Alcaraz just gets a lot of time here actually, despite the forehand slice, and manages to lob Vavassori for a free love lead, which seems like it should end the match. Who knows? White sides. When does someone win? So basically, you have to have 6 games in a set, and you have to have 2 sets. The reason why it was to 7 in the first set is because you need to win by 2 games in a set. So you can't win 6-5. You have to win 6-4, 7-5, or if it's 6-6, it's tied and it goes to this tie break. But basically, Alcaraz is now 3 games away from winning the match. As Maddie said when he was coming back, I mean, still the plan, I think, is Dubai, right? But sort of he has been gradually withdrawing from events. So we don't know if that's going to happen. But for now, the plan is Dubai. As he has withdrawn, obviously, from Rotterdam this week, and he has also withdrawn from Doha next week. But for now, he is still on the entry list for Dubai. So for all we know, the plan for Medvedev is to return there. Is it possible for Vava to win? Well, before the match, it was very hard for him to win just because he's facing one of the best players in the world. Right now, being down 6-7 love 3, it's very hard for him to win. It's really gonna take something special. Sinner getting close to Medi in ranking points, says Sean. Indeed, Sinner has a good chance of passing him this week. I mean, technically, number 3 or number 4, that doesn't matter all that much in terms of how the draws are composed, right? Sinner can actually get there with a title this week in Rotterdam. But obviously, we know that Sinner is the leader in terms of the ATP race, and with the Australian Open title, his ambitions might be very, very high this year in regards to the rankings as well. So far, he has a big head start on Alcaraz and Djokovic. I think a lot will definitely depend on that clay season when it comes to him and how much damage he can do there, and that will probably determine whether he can get to number 1. And obviously, it's going to be important what Djokovic and Alcaraz do, because if one of them gets like the next 3 slams and 3 of the next 5 ATP thousands, then yeah, it's going to be tough. But but I think just sort of the clay season might be very important for Sinner in regards to whether he does a lot of damage there, or does he just get 1,000, 600, 800 points. Last year, I don't think he's done much. Like, it was obviously the Monte Carlo semi with 360, was it back then? I think for an ATP 1000 semi, but otherwise, not much more. Some of that due to physical issues as well. Roland Garros second round loss to Daniel Altmaier, so there's a lot to gain there for Sinner if he can just prove that on clay he's also a top 3, top 4 player. Which I think he probably is a top 4 player. Top 3? We'll see. It's going to be another good lob from Alcaraz. Just too much time that Vavassori gives him there. And it's going to be another breakpoint. So this is really unraveling. This is, an avalanche now for Alcaraz. But again, I think after the opening set tiebreak, I also said it, or maybe even in the opening set tiebreak, right? That obviously, anytime we have a match like this, like the underdog is really pushing the favorite, but you kind of feel like the favorite has another gear, winning that first set or not is so meaningful. And especially if the second set just sort of starts for Vavassori like he has here. I don't know, really? Has he missed it, Alcaraz? I don't think so. That was probably a bad call, I would assume. Yeah. I think they're gonna be replaying, yeah. That's not a great call from the chair umpire. Oh, not the chair umpire, but the line umpire here. But Vavassori gets another crack at the first serve, and he lands it in. He gets the point as well. So. Oh, and that's a rough second serve return for Carlos as well. So from potentially going for love up here, he might just give Vavassori, extend the chances of the Italian to stick around here. And he will be regretting that point that was replayed as well, right? Because with the depth of his return there, the one that was called out, he was definitely the favorite to take the point there and was on a break point. But who knows? Maybe he can still clinch this game. Of course, it's just game point Vavassori for now. The Italian attacking pretty nicely inside in forehand. Alcaraz just barely getting to it, and it's actually the short. The lack of depth on his shot, the way he barely made it over the net, that was the trickiest for Vavassori to handle here. Juan Carlos Ferrero having a laugh. The chair umpire is going to be summoned once again, but I do think that serve was probably out. Yes, indeed. So, second serve for Vavassori at deuce. He approaches the net again. Alcaraz should have this point, though. Or maybe it's going to be a good twinner from Vavassori. No, it's basically into the crowd. Maybe John Silk got hit in the head with this Vavassori twinner. That's like the sort of trajectory that it took. But of course, it's winner. You don't hit it because you think that you might be in control of the point, right? You hit it because you sort of have to come up with something that might save you miraculously. But no. Anyway, one more breakpoint for Carlos Alcaraz. That's a massive serve. I want to see the speed of that. I don't think I see it on the screen quite. But I would assume that was really, really fast from Vavassori. 200 at least. Probably about 220 in my book. What a return from Alcaraz. That was totally, by accident, but still. It gives him the control over the point, but they're still playing. Vavassori coming up with a couple of really good situational shots, but eventually he loses it. But yeah, that return from Alcaraz was totally lucky. But well, you have to take your, what the fortune sort of brings you, right? And he was able to do it. Vavassori also could have done more on the +1 shot anyway, despite this lucky break for Carlos. One more opportunity to break Vavassori and basically end the match. 7-6 for love. we would really be talking, comeback of the century if Vavassori pulled it off. However, let's see if we actually get there. Let's see if maybe he can save another breakpoint now. Goes to the net after the second serve. Alcaraz should have a chance for a pass, but he goes for too much here. You could see the excitement, you could see how he was just getting into position very early here and just blasting that banana forehand pass. Like you could see that the shot really intrigues him. You could see that he really wants to land this flashy winner, and maybe he wanted it too much. Once again, deuce on the Vavassori serve. And the heavy forehand return gives an error, grants an error to Alcaraz from Vavassori's racket. So one more breakpoint. And that's gonna be the break as well. Vavassori serving volleying again. He actually did a pretty nice job here on this pickup, but it was fairly deep. It forced a lot of backwards movement from Alcaraz. But we talked about this on the Ugo Carabelli match as well. The way he's able to accelerate when he's falling backwards, it is like kinda unmatched. Well, Federer obviously had it. Ernesto Escobedo in his prime had it. That's very random, um, but yeah, very tough shot to pull off. But he manages to do it. He manages to pass Andrea Vavassori, and it's 7-6 for love. Carlos Alcaraz, who seems in total control right now, and is just 2 games away. That was a nice recovery in this point from Vavassori, though. He's still in it, but he's not in it after this backhand error. Survives the early pressure, but not long enough to keep his chances to win the point, to win the first point of the 5th game. Bit of a sloppy +1 forehand error from Alcaraz, but it might not matter right now. He has such a lead right now that it might not be too important. But of course, yesterday, there was some tightness near the end. There was some nerves as well, even though he was also dominating, right? 6-2, 5-2 against Ugo Carabelli. He loses the next 3 games. He also falls behind love 40 at 5-all and kind of has to bring out his best serving of the match right there. So maybe we're going to see a repeat of that. Maybe you will see some sort of twist and momentum change near the end. Not looking like it so far, though. As the previous point, he kind of just got a repeat of the second one, even though it was the other side of the court in terms of the serve. But he got a very similar position on the +1 forehand, and he managed to get it just done, better. However, yeah, again, we have a sensational drop shot here. Just not that much you can do, really. Vavassori is 2 meters behind the baseline. He is hardcore defending. He is fighting for his life there. And then how do you even stop that drop shot, especially when Carlos hit it so well? And You can see the grip that we were talking about earlier, how late he changes the grip for the forehand dropper, and there's nothing you can do really at that stage. 40-15, chance to go 5 love up for Carlos Alcaraz, and again really put us into that comeback of the century territory if Vavassori was gonna be able to pull this off. And that's 5 love Alcaraz. So after the changeover, we're gonna be back with Andrea Vavassori serving to stay in the match for the very first time. Whiteside says that he or she wants Vavassori to win. Yeah, that will be rough, especially now. But yeah, I think even pre-match, it was pretty clear that Vavassori doesn't really stand too much of a chance. However, he did pretty well to get to the tiebreak in the opening set, and he was definitely, I would say, he was the stronger player in the first 12 games. Yeah, it's just that he failed to leave an impression in the tiebreak, and after that, it's really, the rest was history so far, at least. So I should probably say the rest has been history because we might still get some twists and turns, but it's not looking like the Italian has it in him, at least for now. Let's see if Vavassori can get on the board, and after this wild +1 forehand, it's gonna be tougher. Did he make it? I don't think so. There was a net court that was pretty wild. Oh, actually, he did. Oh my goodness. Yeah, he says sorry. I didn't even see if it landed in, honestly. I would like to see a replay of that, but apparently it did. But it was a wild one. Anyway, 15-0. Nasty backhand slice from Alcaraz, but now Vavassori is really hitting quite freely here with the forehands, and he manages to clinch this point after all. I think the umpire was potentially thinking of checking the mark here, but there's no will from either player, it seems. Vavassori had an easy put away anyway, regardless if Alcaraz made that one last shot or not. 30-15 for the Italian, who's trying to secure his first game of the second set here. Yeah, and he's just really hitting freely on the forehand now, which kind of tells you, that he has it in him. It's just obviously tough to bring it out when there's pressure on you. But right now, love 5 down. he's more willing to go for it, and he's actually getting some great points done. "5-1, Vavassori gets the game, and now let's see if Carlos can hold it. So last time, so the second round against Ugo Carabelli, Carlos Alcaraz was obviously 6-5 up. He missed a match point on return. He missed a match point on serve. So it wasn't easy for him to get over the line. And then eventually he was actually pretty close to being down 5-6 and also returning in the next game, right, in the second set. So it's not that easy. It wasn't that easy last time, so let's see if he can finish off the match just quicker this time. First point doesn't suggest it, but of course there's still time. And that's another sloppy forehand miss. So now that's love 30. Alcaraz still hasn't been broken in this match, but he might actually be in trouble for let's say the second or third time in this match on serve. But obviously, just one break point, I think, for now that Vavassori has had as well. So it's not like he was ever down really bad. This is going to be cleaner from him, though. +1 forehand is just taken with a lot of energy, and then eventually he puts away the volley. Should have his chances here as well. Yeah, it's just too short, that return from Vavassori, and Alcaraz is able to step into it and hit another +1 forehand winner, which obviously has been like the money shot for him the past couple of rounds, the bread and butter, the money maker. And that's going to be a match point for Carlos Alcaraz, 40-30. So again, Vavassori has like a mini chance, right? Low 30, 15-30s, a lot of these in this match for him, but he still hasn't been able to break. And can Alcaraz finish it off on the first chance? No, because Vavassori is there with this back and down the line. Probably the best shot that he's hit in the entire match, to be honest with you. So, quite a moment to pull this off. I mean, maybe in a way, it's actually not that impressive that this comes, match point down, because why weren't you hitting this before, right? It's actually a better, a better moment to find it would have been earlier. When it was still like sort of keeping himself in that match. But anyway, let's see if Alcaraz can just hold anyway, or if this match point saved is going to be a similar story to the one against Ugo Carabelli. He's gonna get another chance, so this is already different to the one against Camilo when he was when he wasn't able to grab another one after losing that one chance on return, then one chance on serve. Here he gets two in one game. And is it over? It is over. +1 forehand, inside in winner. again, that's the money shot for him so far this week for sure. And he manages to win it. So, what do we think of this one? I mean, probably a cleaner performance than against Walker-Belli, but did Vavassori have his chances in the first set? Absolutely. Especially if he was able to maybe like put more pressure on Alcaraz at 30 all, 4-5, 5-6, right? That these were the big moments for him. But then he fails to leave an impression in the tiebreak. Alcaraz comes up with these two back to back +1 forehand drop shot winners, and that really like takes the wind out of Vavassori's sails. You can see it, and the rest of the tiebreak is basically done. It's history, and the second set is also done very quickly. So all in all, I think it's just another sort of performance where the B game of Alcaraz was enough. His drop shot was certainly fabulous. Like that's something we can definitely praise him for today. The +1 forehand, yes, sure, a lot of good opportunities that he was able to just sort of blast it and just end the point right there. But all in all, definitely hasn't like gotten out of his second gear. I would say the big moment when he will have to do it in Buenos Aires to me is the semifinal. To me, that's going to be when he plays Nicolas Jarry or Thomas Martin Echeverry. These are the toughest opponents, I think, for now. Federico Coria and Facundo Diaz Acosta in the final can both be pretty tricky. Like I think Diaz Acosta can serve as a bit of a let's say a Cameron Norrie type of matchup for Alcaraz on clay, you know, where there's like a lot of super heavy shots and keeping Alcaraz pushed behind the baseline. Maybe, you know, the leftiness as well. So maybe that's tricky. Federico Coria obviously is such a good player as well when it comes to his counter punching, the intensity. Maybe the final is also actually going to be quite tough, but I would assume that, you know, the highest quality opposition that Carlos is going to face this week is going to be the semis. So it's going to be that question whether against Jarry or against Echeverry he's going to be able to step it up. For now, he's been doing just fine. He's been doing, you know, enough without looking any spectacular. Definitely not. But for now, it's been way more than enough. And let's see. Vamos, says Ashley. Thank you as well. I think Sean, yeah, with these Alcaraz emojis actually on my StreamYard sort of comment section, they don't show up for me too much. Like they, you know, I see the code. I think I don't see the actual emojis, but probably on YouTube you can see them. But that's what you were referring to yesterday. Now I know. However, yeah, again, just thank you guys for this stream. We're gonna see each other for some other stuff. I think tomorrow there's definitely gonna be a stream for Świątek Rybakina. I don't think I'm gonna be on it, but maybe something in the evening as well or something like that. We'll see. I would definitely like to watch Alcaraz against Jarry or Echeverry as well. Maybe we're also going to have a stream for that. Who knows? Keep tuning into the content that we have from Del Rey and Buenos Aires this week. John obviously being there until the end of the week, so that should be quite exciting as well. And for now, he still has Carlos Alcaraz to watch this week, which is probably the main attraction of that Buenos Aires event this year for sure. And without Alcaraz, it would kind of be pretty flat, I'd say. Even from the early sort of what we had at the beginning of the show, right? When John came on, you could kind of feel that he's like a little disappointed maybe with a few opponents falling out of Alcaraz's path. And how this seems like a fairly straightforward path to the title for him. But again, tomorrow, Jarry or Echeverry, I think that's a tough match. So at least we'll have that, and we're going to have to see whether Alcaraz can actually find that extra gear when he needs it, or rather if he needs it, I should probably say. Anyway, again, thank you, and I'll see you on some other Talking Tennis content. Bye.